Greetings, my fellow intellectuals and bookworms. It's time for another video. Now, because of a request from a fan, I saw your comment by the way, I'm going to give you an autopsy of what I got wrong on my predictions. I'm really good in terms of predicting elections, and the analysis and gist of my UK election prediction wasn't wrong. A matter of fact, I got more of my prediction right than wrong. Yes, I was, to a certain extent, aware of how fucked up the UK election system is, but it's way more fucked. It's at least as 5 times as bad as even my cynical self is. Now, in the US, our election system's pretty fucked up. You can win an election as a senator with only 12% of the vote, and that's the majority. And we have gerrymandering in electoral college. But in the UK, election results are so fucking skewed, they make no sense. There are 650 parliament seats. The Conservatives, the Tories under Boris Johnson, screwed everything to shit. And they got 43% of the vote, which isn't even the fucking majority. And Labour technically didn't even do that bad. They only got 35% of the vote. Yet they got 340 out of 650 seats. That's 53% of the total seats. In what world does 43% equal the majority? It might technically be a plurality, but there's no way it should equal 53% of the seats. That's roughly 60 seats in a discrepancy. And in this case, what this just means, Boris Johnson will continue to fuck shit up. Now, let's look at the other parts of my predictions. I predicted the Scottish Nationalist Party would sweep Scotland. They did. They got the majority, 80% of the seats, 58 out of, 70 or something. I don't have the results at my fingertips. And I understand that I screwed up the seat count, but by the time I released the prediction, which was a rush so that you could see it before the election, I realized too late to fix it, and I realized it the second I actually Googled it. And in Wales, Plaid Cymru did not pick up seats, but they held their seats, which is honestly something that no one expected either. People said, oh, the Welsh nationalism has been declining for years, blah, blah, blah. They don't have any life in their movement. It's not like Scotland. Well, support for it went from 25% to 31% if conditions stay the same, and 41% if Brexit happens, which is a huge jump in support for a short amount of time. Another thing, my prediction that Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland will leave the UK, those ones are still in the water, although my percentage count may or may not be right. Scotland, with the majority of seats going SNP, has actually announced another referendum. Sure, Westminster has to approve it, and Parliament has to approve it, and Boris Johnson has said no second independence referendum, but the fact that the majority of people voted for the SNP suggests they want independence. So, yeah, Boris Johnson doesn't want to be the PM who lost Scotland or broke up the UK, but he's balancing a tightrope. If he says no, his whole spiel is Brexit is because of the will of the people, right? Because technically a bare majority voted for it, even though public opinion has since shifted. If the majority of people can vote for Brexit and Brexit will be delivered, the majority of people sent a clear message. We as Scotland want out. So, can he ignore that politically? The answer is almost certainly no, at least not long term. I imagine it'll be a Northern Ireland type situation, when the IRA, Irish Republican Army, and the UDF and UVF Ulster Defence Force, Ulster Volunteer Force, basically British paramilitaries supported and armed by the British Army, who committed wide-scale atrocities like burning a Protestant and ironically UK Unionist grandma in her house, shooting a 12-year-old Catholic girl, and stuff like that, were clashing and there was violence all the time. A main part of the infrastructure for Northern Ireland was blown up by explosives. The Northern Ireland electrical connector grid was blown out in the 70s and took it till the 2000s to happen. Now, Scotland, I feel like there will be a rebellion and an uprising and even potentially terrorism if Scotland doesn't get its chance. And the reason why they voted to stay was they were told that if they voted yes to leave, they would be kicked out of the EU. Now they're being dragged out of the EU when the majority of the people didn't vote for it. I mentioned that Scotland and Northern Ireland will probably leave. Northern Ireland has an agreement with the UK where they can leave at any time if there's a border pull. And opinion has shifted. The unholy alliance between Sinn Féin and the SDLF has occurred. Two parties that would normally have never agreed to be in alliance together, but they both agreed to join the Republic of Ireland. Technically, Sinn Féin doesn't see the Northern Irish Parliament as a legitimate parliament because of the Irish Free State and history. But all you need to do, man, is take your seats. Take your seats, vote on legislation, and you can get the fuck out. You now have 10 seats between yourselves and your coalition versus 8. You can essentially tell the Unionists to shove it up their ass. But the point is, Northern Ireland's pretty much going to leave regardless. And there's not much you can do. Arlene Forrester and the DUP had their hand, and they screwed it up. And they're the only unionist party that still wants to be in the UK, and they lost the majority that they needed to do so. Clearly, politics in Northern Ireland has shifted. Essentially, all that's standing in their way is essentially principles that Northern Ireland is not a legitimate government because of the Declaration of Independence by Ireland and Britain granting it, and how Northern Ireland immediately exercised the right to stay in the UK. Get over that, get what you want. Seems like a no-brainer. I would advise them to do it. The problem is, if you lose one part, you can easily lose others. Scotland has a thriving independence movement. I predict a narrow majority for yes. Matter of fact, all over the border towns in Scotland and even major cities, there are a bunch of blue and white stickers for the Scottish flag. Blue background, white word, yes, as in yes independence vote, and posters that say the same thing. Now, yes, if they hold a referendum, it might be deemed illegal by the Boris Johnson government, similar to Catalonia. But I don't think Boris Johnson would be able to do shit about it. Sure, they have a devolved parliament, but that might... But what the fuck is the UK gonna do about it? Especially England. Yeah, and whenever I see British people talk about Scotland and Wales, are like, those fuckers are always on fucking welfare. They never pay their fair share in taxes. They don't get a job. They're lazy fucks. And it's like, well, if that's how you feel about them, why the fuck don't you allow them to leave? And it's like, they can't leave on us. So Scotland's pretty likely to leave. Now, granted, it's only 3.5 million, and the UK and England is the largest country of it. Well, actually, 5.5 million in Scotland, 3.5 in Wales, and 1.5 in Northern Ireland. So Scotland and Northern Ireland are going to be out. Wales, honestly, from what I've heard from Welsh people, they don't so much as like England as they're willing to tolerate them. After losing Scotland and Northern Ireland, I don't think Wales will stay. So, congratulations, Boris Johnson. You're going to be PM of just England. So, my prediction about that is probably close to true. And I did not mean to suggest that the Scottish Democratic Unionist Party was pro Irish republicanism, because originally they're not. They just made a statement that we want to remain in the UK, but if the UK does not want to be a part of the EU, we don't want to be in the UK. So and they took 2 seats, and the middle of the road party, Atrium, something like that, took another seat. So it means it's either 9-8 or 10-8. They have the majority. And so, despite what the media attempts to say, oh, Corbyn's done, he didn't get elected prime minister, leadership scuffle, fuck up. The UK's Bernie Sanders wasn't elected. Well, if you look at the vote count, more people voted against conservative or the Tories than for them. Yet they get to be prime minister. How the fuck does that work? So my predictions weren't exactly wrong, and I really believe that my predictions that still haven't been fulfilled probably will be fulfilled. So that is it. I'm just gonna finish up with my final words. FYI, some space magically appeared on my phone. Now I'm up to 2.1 gigabytes, and I'll give you at least 2 videos before I leave. If you did not know, I'm going to go to my grandparents in Indiana for the winter because I went 3 weeks in the cold. I will try and upload videos if I can. If not, please understand. Like, comment, and subscribe if you have not done so. This is Sean Hartnett wishing you a good day.